My name is Alex. I'm 32 years old, and I'm a contractor. Not the kind you see on glamorous home renovation shows, but the kind with dirt under his fingernails and calluses that never quite go away. I build things, real things, from the ground up. And for most of my life, I've been building myself up in the exact same way, alone, quietly, and without a single blueprint from the people who were supposed to teach me. The phone call came on a Tuesday. I was on a job site, dust motes dancing in the afternoon sun, the smell of sawdust and sweat hanging in the air. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and I saw the caller ID, Leo. My brother. My golden child, charismatic, never had to work a real day in his life brother. He was calling from Hawaii, where my parents had set him up to run a boutique hotel they'd bought for him as a business venture. I almost let it go to voicemail, but a strange premonition made me answer. Alex, he said, his voice strained, a frantic edge to it I'd never heard before. I need your help, I sighed, leaning against a stack of drywall. What is it, Leo? There was a pause, and then he asked the question that set the whole world on fire. Where is your wife? Where's Sarah? The question was so bizarre, so out of left field, that I was momentarily speechless. Why on earth would he be asking about Sarah? I looked over at the site foreman, motioning that I'd be a minute. I walked outside into the bright sunlight, the sudden quiet making his question echo in my head. A cold, hard certainty began to crystallize in my gut. I knew, with absolute clarity, what this was about. They were coming for her. Or rather, for what they thought she represented, a pressure point, a way to get to me. I took a deep breath, the anger a slow, controlled burn. I replied, my voice dangerously calm, she's where she's supposed to be, Leo. With me. The real question is, where's your hotel? Before I continue and tell you how that one question unraveled decades of family secrets and lies, I need you to do something for me. Drop a comment below and hit that like button and subscribe if you've ever been the one who was overlooked, the one who had to fight for every scrap of recognition while someone else had it handed to them on a silver platter. Because this story is for you. To understand why that phone call felt like a declaration of war, you have to understand my family. We were a classic two-son household, but we might as well have been from different planets. Leo was the sun, and I was a distant, forgotten moon orbiting him. He was born with a halo of charm, a magnetic personality that drew people in. He was handsome, witty, and effortlessly popular. Our parents were his biggest fans. From the moment he could walk, everything was about Leo. He got the new bike for Christmas, I got his old one with a cheap coat of paint. He got the lead in the school play, I was told my stage fright was an inconvenience. When Leo broke our neighbor's window playing baseball, our father laughed it off, paid for the damages, and told him he had a great arm. A year later, when I accidentally knocked over a lamp in our own living room, I was grounded for a month and had to pay for it out of the meager allowance I earned doing chores Leo was supposed to split with me. It was never about the money, it was about the principle. Leo's mistakes were charming anecdotes, mine were character flaws. Our parents, my father in particular, saw Leo as an extension of himself, a legacy in the making. My mother just enabled it all, smoothing over any conflict with a placid smile and a quiet word in my ear about not making waves, and being the bigger person. Being the bigger person always meant shrinking myself to make more room for Leo. This dynamic bled into every corner of our lives, especially our education and careers. Leo declared he wanted to go to a private university out of state to get a business degree. There was no discussion about cost or loans. My parents liquidated stocks they had been saving and proudly wrote the checks. When it was my turn, I tentatively mentioned an interest in engineering at the state university. My father looked at me over his newspaper and said, "We've invested a lot in your brother's future, Alex. You're good with your hands. Maybe look at the community college, or just get a job. You need to learn how to be practical." The message was clear, Leo was an investment, I was an expense. The sting of that dismissal was sharp, but it was also liberating. It was the moment I realized that if I wanted anything in this life, I would have to get it for myself. No one was coming to help me. So, I did something they considered beneath them. I enrolled in a vocational program for electrical and general contracting. I loved the logic of it, the satisfaction of creating something tangible and functional. While Leo was at parties, I was learning how to wire a house. While he was writing papers on marketing theory, I was earning certifications. My parents barely acknowledged it. To them, I was just Alex, the handyman, a useful but ultimately unimpressive cog in the world. It was a role they were comfortable with, and for my own reasons, I let them believe it. My real education began not in a classroom, but in the muddy trenches of construction sites. It was there I met Mr. Henderson, a semi-retired contractor who took me under his wing. He was a gruff, no-nonsense man with hands like leather and an eye that could spot a crooked joist from 50 yards away. He saw something in me my own father never did, potential. "Kid," he told me one day, wiping grease from his hands with a rag, "you've got the knack. But being good at the work is only half of it. The other half is business. Don't just work for wages. Own your tools. Then own your truck. Then own your business." That advice became my gospel. I lived like a monk. I worked every hour of overtime I could get, took side jobs on weekends, and saved every single dollar that didn't go toward rent for my tiny apartment or cheap food. While my parents sent Leo money for spring break trips and a new car, I was buying my first professional-grade toolkit. While Leo was graduating with honors and a mountain of my parents' money spent, I was buying a beat-up work van. My family saw my frugality as proof of my struggle. They'd make pitying comments at holidays. "Oh, Alex, you work so hard for so little," my mother would say, patting my hand. "Maybe one day you'll catch a break," my father would just grunt, "A man makes his own breaks." The irony was so thick I could have cut it with a trowel. I never corrected them. Their ignorance was my shield. It allowed me to operate completely under their radar. When I had enough saved, I got my contractor's license and incorporated my own company, Apex Construction. It was just me and my van at first. I built a reputation for being reliable, honest, and meticulous. The work started pouring in. Within 2 years, I had to hire my first employee. Then 2 more. During this time, I met Sarah. She was an architect on a small commercial project I was bidding for. She was brilliant, sharp, and had a laugh that could cut through the noise of a nail gun. She saw me not as an Alex, the handyman, but as Alex, the business owner. She looked at my dog-eared notebooks filled with figures and plans and saw the same thing Mr. Henderson had, potential. She didn't just become my partner in life, she became my partner in business. With her background in design and my practical expertise, we were a formidable team. She helped me streamline my operations, modernize my accounting, and see bigger opportunities. We started buying distressed properties, renovating them, and leasing them out. First a duplex, then a small apartment building, then a commercial storefront. My parents knew I'd gotten married to the nice girl, but they knew nothing of our shared success. To them, I was still just their blue-collar son, the reliable but unremarkable one, a stark contrast to their brilliant son Leo, who they had just funded to acquire and manage a hotel in Hawaii. Their pride in him was immense, and their blindness to me was absolute. And that's exactly how I wanted it. The silence on the other end of the line after my question, "The real question is, where's your hotel?" was more telling than any answer could have been. I could hear Leo's shallow, panic breaths. Finally, he stammered, What does that have to do with anything?" "I'm asking about Sarah." His voice was high and thin. "Are you threatening me?" The sheer audacity of it, accusing me of threats when he was the one who had called me in a desperate, demanding tone, was almost laughable. "No, Leo," I said, my voice as cold and hard as steel. "I'm not threatening you. I'm telling you to leave my wife out of whatever mess you've gotten yourself into. This is between you and me." I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, not from fear, but from a surge of adrenaline and long-suppressed rage. I knew this was just the beginning. I was right. Less than an hour later, my mother called. Her voice was a syrupy blend of concern and accusation. "Alex, honey, what did you say to your brother? He's very upset. He said you were hostile. I didn't play her game. Mom, what's going on? Why did Leo call me asking for Sarah? She sighed, a long-suffering sound she had perfected over decades. Oh, Alex. You know how dramatic he can be. He's just under a lot of pressure. The hotel, it's not doing as well as we'd hoped. There are some unexpected expenses, and things are tight there. It was the opening salvo. How tight? I asked, already knowing the answer. Well, she hedged. Your father and I have helped as much as we can. We just thought, you know, with your little business, you must have some savings put away. It's for family, Alex. It's for your brother. The condescension was breathtaking. My little business, she'd called it. She had no idea. Later that evening, my father called. There was no syrup from him, just pure, uncut acid. Your mother tells me you were difficult today, he started, no greeting, no preamble. Leo is in trouble. He needs $150,000. To cover his debts and keep the hotel afloat. I was silent. The number was substantial. It was more than the down payment on their house had been. I know that's a lot of money for a guy like you, he continued, his tone dripping with disdain, but you're going to give it to us. You can work a few extra jobs, pick up some overtime. Your brother's future is on the line. Our family's reputation is on the line. You will not be the one to let us all down. The entitlement was staggering. He wasn't asking. He was issuing a decree. He saw me as nothing more than a walking ATM, a tool to be used to fix the problems created by his perfect, flawless son. They believed I was the same boy who would quietly take the blame for the broken window, the same young man who would accept their scraps without complaint. They had no earthly idea who they were talking to anymore. The pressure campaign was relentless. For the next 2 weeks, my phone was a constant source of anxiety. Calls and texts from my parents and Leo, each one escalating in its desperation and delusion. They framed it as my sacred duty, my one chance to finally be a good son and a supportive brother. Sarah was my rock. She listened to every irate voicemail, read every guilt-laced text, and just held my hand. They don't see you, Alex, she'd say, her voice firm. They see a piggy bank they think they have a right to smash open. You don't owe them this. She was right. The final showdown was destined to happen at my parents' 40th wedding anniversary party. They had rented out a private room at an upscale restaurant, an extravagance they likely couldn't afford, probably to keep up appearances. The invitation felt less like a request and more like a summons. Leo flew in from Hawaii for it, a move I knew was orchestrated for one purpose, to corner me in a public setting where they thought I'd be too embarrassed to say no. We walked in, Sarah on my arm, and the atmosphere shifted. The polite chatter dwindled. All eyes were on us. My father, holding a glass of champagne, strode over. Alex. Sarah. Glad you could make it. His smile didn't reach his eyes. The ambush began after the main course. My father stood, tapped his glass for attention, and launched into a toast. He spoke about love, commitment, and the importance of family. Then, he pivoted. Family is about sacrifice, he said, his gaze locking onto me across the room. It's about lifting each other up when one of us falls. It's about recognizing that our individual successes are meaningless unless we share them to protect the whole. The room was silent. Everyone knew who he was talking about. Then Leo stood up, his face a mask of practiced sincerity. He's right, he said, his voice quivering slightly. I've hit a rough patch. But I know my family has my back. Especially my brother. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. Come on, Alex. Don't do this to me. To us, the weight of every eye in that room was on me. They were expecting me to fold. To write the check. To be the good, responsible, invisible son they'd always counted on. I felt Sarah squeeze my hand under the table. I stood up slowly. The room held its breath. It was then that Sarah decided the time for subtlety was over. She stood beside me and spoke, her voice clear and steady, cutting through the tense silence. I think, she began, looking directly at my father, that you all have a fundamental misunderstanding of our situation. A confused murmur went through the room. My mother looked horrified. For years, Sarah continued, her voice gaining strength, you have referred to Alex's work as his little business, as you've assumed he's struggling, that he's just getting by. You are mistaken. She paused for effect. Alex isn't just a contractor. He is the founder and sole proprietor of Apex Construction, one of the most respected and fastest-growing contracting firms in the state. He's not just good with his hands, he's an employer, an innovator, and a savvy investor. We own 6 commercial properties and 2 apartment buildings outright. The $150,000 you're demanding? We could write that check right now and it wouldn't make a dent in our quarterly earnings. The collective gasp in the room was audible. My parents' faces went from smug condescension to slack-jawed shock. Leo looked like he'd been physically struck. The shock on their faces quickly morphed into something else, something ugly and raw, pure, unadulterated greed. Their eyes widened, a manic gleam appearing as they recalculated my worth in their heads. I let Sarah's words hang in the air for a moment, then I delivered the final blow myself. She's right, I said, my voice resonating with a power they had never heard from me. We could afford to bail you out, Leo. But we won't. For my entire life, you got the investment, the encouragement, the belief. I got leftovers. You got a university education, a new car, a hotel. I was told to be a practical, so I was. I built my success with my own 2 hands, with no help from any of you. This money, I said, gesturing between Sarah and myself, was earned through sweat and sacrifice you can't even comprehend. It belongs to the family that I built, not the one that never bothered to see me. The stunned silence that followed my declaration was absolute. It was as if all the air had been sucked out of the room. My father's face, which had been pale with shock, slowly turned a mottled, furious red. The greed in his eyes was replaced by pure rage. How dare you, he sputtered, taking a step toward me. How dare you stand there and speak to me that way? After everything we've done for you? You've been hiding this from us? Lying to us all this time? The sheer, breathtaking hypocrisy of his statement almost made me laugh. Everything you've done for me? I asked, my voice dangerously level. You mean telling me I wasn't worth investing in? You mean ignoring every single achievement of my life while you propped up a failure? I didn't lie to you. You simply never bothered to ask. You never showed enough interest to know anything about my life beyond the caricature you'd created in your own minds. My mother, seeing her husband's rage was getting them nowhere, switched tactics to her preferred weapon, emotional manipulation. Tears welled in her eyes. Alex, baby, please, she whispered, her voice cracking. Don't do this to us. Think of your brother. His whole life will be ruined. He'll have nothing. Is that what you want? To destroy your own brother? Leo, finally finding his voice, chimed in, the shock now replaced by a petulant sense of entitlement. She's right. This is insane. You have all that money, and you're just going to sit there and watch me fail? What kind of brother are you? That was the breaking point. What kind of brother am I? I repeated, the words dripping with decades of resentment. I'm the kind of brother who paid for a window you broke so you wouldn't get in trouble. I'm the kind of brother who wore your hand-me-down so you could have the newest clothes. I'm the kind of brother who was told he wasn't good enough so all the family's resources could be funneled into your bottomless pit of potential. I have been that brother my entire life. And I am done. I looked from my father's rage to my mother's tears to my brother's selfish disbelief. For the first time, I felt nothing but a profound sense of detachment. They weren't my family. They were my origin story. My money, my success, and my life are for my family, I said, turning to put my arm around Sarah, pulling her close. My real family. The family I chose and the family I built. The one that values me, supports me, and respects me. This conversation is over. We're leaving. I looked around the room at the stunned faces of distant relatives and family friends, then back at my parents and brother. I gave them nothing. No anger, no sadness, just finality. Sarah and I turned and walked out of that restaurant, leaving them all behind in the wreckage of their own making. The cool night air that hit my face as we stepped outside felt like the first breath of a free man. I had finally walked away, not just from a confrontation, but from a lifetime of being made to feel small. The immediate aftermath was a storm. It was as if by walking out of that restaurant, I had kicked a hornet's nest the size of a small car. My phone became a weapon used against me. The attack was two-pronged. My father specialized in threats and anger. He left voicemails that were practically shouting, telling me I was disowned, that I would regret turning my back on them, that I would come crawling back one day and he wouldn't be there for me. The irony was so potent it was nauseating. My mother, on the other hand, launched a campaign of guilt. She sent long, rambling texts in the middle of the night detailing how her heart was broken, how I was tearing the family apart, how she couldn't eat or sleep for worry over Leo. She painted me as a cold, cruel monster who had been corrupted by money and a manipulative wife. According to her, Sarah was the villain who had poisoned me against my own loving family. Leo's messages were a pathetic mix of begging and blaming. One minute he'd be pleading, "Alex, please, I'll pay you back, I swear," and the next he'd be raging, "This is all your fault. If you had just helped, none of this would be happening." He couldn't see, even for a second, that his situation was the result of his own choices. It was exhausting and painful. A part of me, the little boy who had always craved their approval, felt every barb and every accusation. But Sarah and my chosen family kept me anchored. My best friend, Mike, came over with beer and pizza the night after the party. He listened to the whole story and just said, "Man, it's about damn time. I'm proud of you." His simple validation meant more to me than any word my father had ever spoken. The most crucial support, however, came from an unexpected source, my Aunt Carol, my father's sister. She called me about a week into the fallout. "Alex," she said, her voice gentle, "I'm not calling to pressure you. I'm calling to tell you that you did the right thing." I was so surprised I didn't know what to say. "Your father has been trying to rally the whole family against you," she explained. "He's telling everyone you're a selfish millionaire who is letting your brother starve. But some of us have been watching this dynamic play out for 30 years, Alex. We saw how you were treated. We saw the favoritism. We just never had the courage to say anything. What you did took guts, and I, for one, am proud of you." Her words were a balm on a raw wound. Hearing that someone else saw it, that I wasn't crazy, was incredibly healing. With the support of Sarah, Mike, and Aunt Carol, I found the strength to do what I needed to do. I blocked my parents' and Leo's numbers. I set up a filter on my email to send their messages directly to a folder I never had to look at. I created a wall of silence, a boundary they could no longer cross. It was an act of self-preservation, and it was the best decision I ever made. With the toxic noise silenced, my life began to change. The constant, low-level anxiety I had lived with for years started to dissipate. I was no longer waiting for the next phone call, the next demand, the next wave of guilt. Sarah and I poured our energy into what we loved, our life and our business. We took on a project we'd been dreaming of for years, designing and building our own home on a piece of land we'd bought a while back. It was a beautiful, wooded lot with a creek running through it. Every beam we raised, every wall we framed, felt symbolic. We weren't just building a house, we were building a sanctuary, a physical representation of the life we had created for ourselves, founded on our own hard work and mutual respect. While we were building our future, the family I'd left behind was facing the consequences of their past. As I predicted, Leo's hotel venture collapsed spectacularly. The bank foreclosed, and he was forced to declare bankruptcy. My father, in a last-ditch effort to save his golden boy, had apparently co-signed the loans and poured the last of his and my mother's retirement savings into the failing business. He lost everything. Leo had to slink back home from Hawaii with nothing but a suitcase and a mountain of debt. Soon after, the for sale sign went up in front of my childhood home. They had to sell the house I grew up in to cover their losses and downsize to a small rental apartment. Aunt Carol kept me updated, not out of gossip, but because she thought I had a right to know. She said they were humbled, but also deeply bitter. They told anyone who would listen that their ungrateful son had left them to rot. But the narrative wasn't holding. People saw a failed hotel, a wiped-out retirement fund, and a lifetime of poor decisions. They saw cause and effect. My healing wasn't just about financial or physical distance, it was internal. I started seeing a therapist to unpack the complex feelings of grief, anger, and relief. I learned to separate my self-worth from their validation. I grieved the family I wished I'd had, while simultaneously celebrating the peace I'd found by leaving them. One of the biggest breakthroughs was realizing that their inability to love me properly was their failing, not mine. I had spent my whole life trying to be worthy of their attention, when in reality, they were not worthy of mine. Sarah and I moved into our new home that fall. Standing on our deck, looking out at the trees, I felt a sense of peace I'd never known. It was a quiet, solid feeling. It was the feeling of being home, in every sense of the word. Almost a year passed in relative silence. Our business thrived, our new home felt more like a home every day, and the drama of my biological family had faded into a dull, distant memory. Then, one afternoon, an unknown number called my phone. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello?" I said cautiously. "Alex?" It's Leo." His voice was different. The arrogant, slick charm was gone. It was quiet, hesitant, and sounded smaller. I was immediately on my guard. "What do you want, Leo?" "Nothing," he said quickly. "I mean, I don't want anything. No money. Nothing. I wanted to talk. If you're willing." Curiosity got the better of me. "Talk about what?" There was a long pause. I could hear him take a shaky breath. "I got a job," he said. "I'm working for a logistics company. In the warehouse. It's hard work." He said the words hard work like it was a foreign language he was just learning. And I wanted to say, "I'm sorry," he mumbled, the words clumsy and clearly difficult for him. When I lost everything, I had a lot of time to think. I had to get a real job, had to start from zero. And I realized, I never started from zero before. You did. And I never saw it. I never saw you at all. I just saw someone who was supposed to help me. I was an idiot, Alex. I was a spoiled, entitled idiot. And I'm sorry for all of it. The apology was imperfect. It was littered with his own perspective, centered on his own epiphany. But it was also the most honest thing I had ever heard him say. It was the first time he had ever acknowledged the disparity in our lives, the first time he had ever taken an ounce of responsibility. I didn't let him off the hook. "An apology is a start, Leo," I said carefully. "But trust has been completely broken." "For decades I know," he said, his voice quiet. "I don't expect you to trust me. I just wanted to say it. For me, I guess. And for you." I thought for a long moment. My therapist and I had talked about this possibility. Forgiveness wasn't a gift you give to the other person, it was something you do for yourself. But reconciliation required more. It required changed behavior. "How about this?" I offered. "We can meet for coffee. Next week. Public place. Just to talk. No talk about the past, no talk about money. We just see if we can have a 5-minute conversation like normal people." "Yeah," he said, and for the first time, I heard a flicker of genuine relief in his voice. "Yeah, I'd like that a lot." It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't a reunion. It was the cautious, tentative first step onto a new, uncharted path, one where a relationship, if it were to exist at all, would have to be built on a foundation of respect and brutally honest boundaries. As for my parents, I heard from Aunt Carol that they were living quietly. My father's pride was too great for him to ever reach out. My mother, without her husband's money and status to insulate her, had become a much quieter person. I felt a distant sadness for them, but I knew that bridge was one I couldn't cross yet. Maybe ever. Looking back on it all now, standing in the home I built with the woman I love, I see the whole journey with a clarity that only comes from distance and healing. For so long, my life was defined by a quiet desperation for approval from people who were incapable of giving it. I thought if I worked hard enough, achieved enough, or was just quiet enough, they would finally turn around and see me. The great, painful, and ultimately liberating lesson was that I was looking in the wrong direction. My worth was never something they could bestow upon me. It was something I had to build myself, nail by nail, board by board, just like one of my houses. I had to become my own foundation. My brother's phone call from Hawaii wasn't just about a failing hotel, it was the final, desperate attempt of a broken system to maintain its power over me. My refusal to play my assigned role, the responsible, overlooked scapegoat, caused the entire rotten structure to collapse under the weight of its own dysfunction. It was a painful demolition, but it was necessary to clear the land for something new to grow. My family now is not defined by blood, but by choice. It's Sarah, whose belief in me was a blueprint for the man I could become. It's my mentor, Mr. Henderson, who gave me the tools when my own father wouldn't. It's my friend Mike and my Aunt Carol, who offered support and validation without condition. They are the family who shows up, who respects my boundaries, and who celebrates my success as if it were their own. The relationship with Leo is a slow, ongoing process. We meet for coffee every few weeks. We talk about his job, my projects, the weather. It's simple, and it's fragile, but it's real in a way our previous relationship never was. He is learning what it means to stand on his own 2 feet, and I am learning what it means to have a brother, not a dependent. The greatest peace comes from knowing that I don't need anything from them anymore. Their approval, their recognition, their money, it's all irrelevant. I found what I was looking for inside myself. I am the architect of my own life. If you've ever had to fight to build your own value when the people who were supposed to build you up tried to tear you down, I want you to share your story in the comments below. Know that your worth is not determined by the opinions of others. You are not alone. And please, remember to hit that subscribe button for more stories about finding your own strength and building a life on your own terms.